Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you, talking sporty. We're going to be doing it for the next 2 hours. Thursday's edition of the college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting blitz, sidelines, all college, all the time. And, of course, we're going to talk some NFL playoffs, NBA, Major League, because these guys and gals that go up to the big leagues, they come back, and they're on the show with us. We love talking about it. We've got Dudley, Dawson, hogville.net here in the first segment. Segment number 2, Gary Harris, Tide 100.9, WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa, checking in on Alabama. Top of hour number 2, we'll go with the AD angle. Matt Dean, John Hartwell. Man, what a world we live in, and they can break it down, what goes on. We're here every Monday through Saturday, 6 days a week, 2 hours every day. Check us out, www.sidelines.live. You can listen anywhere live, or if you miss us, go in there on our website or 680thefan.com, the podcast part. Listen on radio. Great stations like Sports Radio 104.7 up in Cookeville, Tennessee on the Cumberland Plateau. Beautiful up there. Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin. More stations soon to follow. We're working on that as we build the Sidelines Southern Sports Network. And again, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. And you can do that. We'll put out great information. We're sports oriented. We talk sports, stay out of politics. And we got a great new sponsor just joined the team, Rumble. We'll talk about them during the show. Ann Camp Lee, the owner, she's going to open up 3 of these gyms in Memphis. And they are boxing and weightlifting, 25 benches and 25 boxing bags. This is big. This is going to be really fun. It's going to be an intense 45-minute workout and a great community of people you'll be working out with. First one is going to be at Union and McLean, right on the corner in a beautiful, brand new, modern building. It's all glass. You can see it. I think that's going to be one of the most talked about locations in Memphis and anywhere. But Rumble, great to have them on board as a sponsor. Dudley, did you ever do any boxing in high school or college? Of course, life is a big boxing match, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Coach Bill Keaty at Newport, part of our workouts getting ready for football was taking on each other in the sweet science in the locker room, and I enjoyed that.
I love it.
Always enjoyed dishing out pain.
Hey, look, it is. You engage, and it's even you even have people that have medical conditions that boxing is, getting in there, not the hitting part, but just all the motions and hitting the bag and just engaging, both sides of your brain and your feet and everything. But it is just, it's great. But Rumble, man, this is going to be cool. It should open up March 1st, the first location in Memphis. Then there will be 2 more to follow, and we'll talk about it more. Dudley, Hogs are doing it. Got Ole Miss Saturday, Tuesday night, 60-40 over LSU. And let's talk about this resurgence. Last year, they started off 1-3, still made the Elite 8. This year, started off 1-5, but they're still the Fighting Musclemans, which means anything can happen.
Yeah, taking care of the business that they should have. They should have won these last 2 games, and they've taken care of them. Got a big ball game Saturday at Baylor, not necessarily in terms of conference play, obviously, because it's a Big 12 challenge. But that would give you a feather in your cap. You can go down there and win. Going to be really tough. But the big key for them is to continue to stack up conference wins. They have Texas A&M here after that. They have South Carolina after that. They have a path to getting back to 500, or at least getting close to it. And then you have Kentucky and some other games that you can just continue. I think the big thing for them is to get to 500 in conference play. If you do that, the rest of the thing will take care of itself. You're not going to be a 2 or 3 seed anymore, as many hoped they would at the first of the season. But the key is to get in the tournament, be dangerous when you get there, and go from there. And all indications are they're getting Nick Smith back really soon. So
that's what I was going to ask you about. And AB and the whole roster, you've got 6 freshmen, correct, on this roster?
Yes, 6 freshmen, 11 overall newcomers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is for a coach to have to break these guys in, mold them together, and play in a league like the SEC. That's not an easy task. Outside of Arkansas in this league right now, Alabama looks to be an elite team. Of course, they struggled early with Mississippi State last night, got the win. Tennessee looks really strong. Auburn got caught. What do I always say? You're most likely to get mugged in your own driveway. I heard way too much talk about Auburn having the nation's longest winning streak instead of, hey, this Texas A&M team with Buzz Williams, they're going to come in and they're going to make you very uncomfortable. That's now 2 straight beatings in the SEC tournament in the regular season. So there's good basketball everywhere, and they're not the flashiest team, A&M isn't. Neither is Auburn, but they exposed Auburn. I look at this Arkansas team. You get Nick Smith back. In your opinion, what all does he bring to the game? Wasn't he the number 1 or 2 player in the country, Little Rock Metro player, but top 2 in the country last year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, a guy who can score at all 3 levels. He's a young man who stayed in there with his teammates. He's very beloved by his teammates, even when some fans were questioning him going out to Los Angeles to get rehab on the knee and to visit a specialist and all that. The players have continued to profess their love for him. Again, a very good player, a guy who's going to be a lottery pick next year. Maybe not as high as he was going to be because he's been out with this knee injury, but someone who still is going to make a lot of money. Once they get him back, that will allow Anthony Black to have a little bit more freedom and not have so many people coming at him. Mentioned the scoring. Also, I think he's a very good passer. I've been watching him play since the 8th grade. When I first saw him in a gym up here in Fayetteville during AAU tournament, and I'm just very impressed with him since he's grown from 5'8" to 6'5" since then, and that really helps you out. I guess, I don't know, since I've been stuck at 5'9" for 40 plus years now. May even be shrinking, but yeah, it's going to be good to get him back. I think it not only will uplift the team, it'll make them better.
Well, I saw something the other day about Anthony Black. People get frustrated when he smiles, and that's social media, and I get it. It can be your best friend and your worst enemy if you let it. But those guys have got to have fun. That people don't appreciate what they do behind the scenes, working. The basketball workouts can be just as intense as the football, and there's a lot more contact in basketball than people realize. And I look at the roster that Arkansas has. This is what I see happening. I like what you said. There is a path to getting to 500. And now you're playing a team that is talented yet young, but in a desperate place. And that's very dangerous when you're taking on someone who is fighting for their tournament life.
Yeah, and LSU helped. Adam Miller, the young man from LSU who had a few comments about running through smoke once they came back up here after they beat Arkansas down there, helped out. I guess somebody needs to say something about somebody's mama next few weeks if that really helps out. But I do think they are playing with a sense of urgency because there's no other thing you can do right now. 1 in 5. It was either become one of the most overhyped and least productive teams in the history of Arkansas, or put your head down and get back to work. And they've done that, especially defensively, and especially in the first halves of these last 2 ball games, which they had trouble getting off to starts. You need to continue that down at Baylor, whether you win or lose, and then come back home the following Tuesday and play a very good Texas A&M team and just keep it going. It sounds silly. I've heard coaches say it for almost 60 years now, one game at a time. And you, as a sports writer and a fan, sometimes you don't want to hear that, but that's so much the truth.
Well, it's like reading a book. I mean, you have 18 conference games. It's an 18 chapter book. You and I and Audrey and everybody else knows if you skip from chapter 5 to chapter 8 and you get to the final exam, you've skipped 6 and 7. It's no different than an architect trying to design a 110-story building and failing to have the engineers put rebar in on the 40th and 41st floor. That could be a real problem. And that is, you're right. It takes patience. And when you're 18 or 19 years old and you're playing in front of, 19,000 every game, Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville, it's hard to slow down. Dudley, I want to get inside your head because you've been a sports writer for.
Want to go there?
Yeah. Well, let's go to Balch. But you think about this, the college basketball in this league in the SEC. We always have had great athletes on every team's roster. Now we're starting to get great basketball players / great athletes with high basketball IQs, great court awareness, but we still, the shooters from the field and the free throw line, that's where we're struggling the most. Would you agree with that take?
Absolutely, and that's because that's not practiced anymore. It's not the shots that are put on the ESPN Sports Center nightly. It's the dunks and the athletic plays that make the top 10 and all that. Mid-range game is the lost art in college basketball. I think that there's guys in the NBA who do a really good job at it. Went and watched a young man the other night in a high school game and was just floored with his mid-range game. And I was thinking that kid must put in a lot of time. But it turned out he's coach's son. So that's how that works sometimes. But yeah, I think the focus far too many times fundamentally in basketball is to do what gets you on the highlights instead of do what gets you to win basketball games.
Yeah. Well, you need to come to Memphis and we'll go to a Grizzlies game. And when you watch like Ja Morant, or you watch Kevin Durant or LeBron James, I mean, there are just Kyrie Irving, whoever it is, when they're shooting from the field, the mechanics are amazing. And you think, I'd like to just guess how many hours a day, year round, they practice shooting from spots on the court and shoot free throws. It's got to be in the thousands a week, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I hear so often from high school coaches these days is that the kids who stay in the gym after practice, who are there before practice, who work on their own, are they're better players. I mean, it's not rocket science there. There's a reason those kids get better, because if you just put in the time that you're asked to put in, you're going to be a player, but you're not going to reach the limits that you have. So I think it's very important to, I never played video games and all that. I didn't. What I would say, if there was a opportunity to have a ball and a goal, then I was playing, and that's probably why I learned that. Just like from growing up on a farm and all that stuff, you put in the time, you get the reward. You don't, and you won't.
Yeah, and I can remember. Like, I'm like you, we're the same age. I don't know how to play video games. We didn't have them. We weren't allowed to. Every day after school, you were at practice or tennis lessons, or you just were outside. You couldn't come home and lay around. And my kids didn't do video games. I don't get that. I want them outside doing stuff. And you're right. The difference with a lot of kids today is they're inside so much, and then they go to practice and outside for football or whatever, they're not acclimated. And mentally, the repetitions. I think we ought to all start watching TV on the floor again. Remember we would sit Indian style, crisscross applesauce, watching TV. And then every time you had to get up, think about all that, you build muscle over time. There's a big difference in the kids today. They're specialized. What percentage of these guys nowadays you think are multi-sport athletes versus 20 or 30 years ago? I bet it's not even close. It's probably very few.
The words I'll use is not enough. You know, when you grew up in Newport, if you could, you played every sport that you could, you know, and that, you know, just like all over many of the southern states and just the United States in general. I think it made you much more well-rounded in terms of each sport, and that you were doing a lot of different things that not only helped you hone your craft, but also allowed your body to become more physically, you know, confident in what you were doing.
Yeah. Well, loading firewood. I mean, just man camp, we call it over at the Cherry Farm in Parkin, Arkansas. You know, going up and down, just splitting wood, changing tires, gutting the deer, cleaning duck, cleaning fish. It's all part of it. But I'm just always fascinated when I look back at the way things were versus where they are now. You say, do you think, before we go to the break, do you think basketball, the sport, is better now than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because, I mean, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. I mean, Magic, how much time you think he spent in the gym? Larry Bird, you know, I mean, you can't, Cornbread Maxwell. Remember all these great shooting guards that you had. I mean, and they
were better athletes. They're better athletes now, but they're not better basketball players.
That's exactly it. That's why I keep saying about the SEC. Everybody, they want the 6'8" tweener that can run up and down the court, slam it, and get on Sports Center. Sports Center's not going to show the guy who's the 97% free throw shooter. And they should, because more of these kids need to say, all right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk some football, but this is great insight with Dudley Dawson, hawgville.net here on the Thursday edition. Sidelines all over great stations like 104.7 Sports Radio, Cookeville, Tennessee, up on the Cumberland Plateau where it is cold. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, Rob Browne back with Dudley Dawson, hawgville.net. And that was Chad House, ECS House Industries, located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, right in the heart of the Delta. Great folks up there making the pulverizer, the better roller, and also the aerators for catfish farming. One thing you got to love, if you ever meet Chad House, great man, hog for life, no doubt about it. His favorite day of the year right before Christmas was when he's able to give his employees bonuses. That's who you want to work for. That is a great employer. He's a great friend. Proud to have them as a sponsor of the hawgville.net Razorback Report. Dudley, here's something else funny. Audrey made a good point, my wife, during the break. And I'll say this, nowadays it's a lot more about the workouts year round versus the fundamentals and the technical and all the minutia of the game. When I'm talking to you and people of our era, your knowledge of the game and the history, the traditions, the heroes is unparalleled. A lot of kids today, someone said on the show yesterday, we were talking about, Virginia Tech with the lunch pail they had on the sidelines, the blue collar work when Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator up there with Frank Beamer, and Shoney from Valdosta texted in, kids today are more familiar with Venmo than they are anything about that history and all that stuff. And a lot of them are, but it's do yourself a favor. Have your kids watch the great classic games of all your sports. I mean, everybody thought American tennis with John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, these guys were yelling, and it was just that kind of behavior is terrible. Well, okay. We won a lot. America was on top of the world. The great matches with McEnroe and Bjorn Borg. And then we got Pete Sampras, who won and kept winning, who was about as boring as watching tar dry. That's what you get. Be careful what you ask for. But give me Jimmy Connors on the tennis court and McEnroe. Give me a broadcast booth with Howard, the head rug, Cosell, Don Gifford. Frank Gifford, Don Meredith up there getting liquored up during the games. That was a great time to grow up. And Friday night, a Dean Martin roast with Foster Brooks, Don Rickles, and Rich Little. Hey, that wasn't a bad time to grow up, was it?
No, it was really good. And we can, it's one of those things that we can always sit here and I know any young listeners that we got are saying, man, these dudes telling people to get out of their yard and all this. And it was great back then. Well, it was great. And it can be great once again if you'll go outside.
Yeah, get outside and play. And that's the thing with football. I want to ask you this, but before we do it, I want your top 5 all-time Arkansas Razorback basketball players, homegrown in the natural state. They could be from Devall's Bluff, Ulam, Casco, Little Rock, Pine Bluff, Helena, Hardy, Evening Shade. I don't care. Hamburg. I know there's one from Hamburg. Pretty good. Now they have to have played though for the Razorbacks.
Well, I think that's pretty easy. And
Okay.
it's been quite a while. I'm always going to go with Sidney Moncrief, number 1, Corliss Williamson, number 2, Ron Brewer, number 3, Marvin Deff, number 4. And, I think number 5, you're probably slipping in, I'm going with the grew up in Arkansas, Joe Klein, although he wasn't from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Be on that list. There's so many great choices that have done so well. You could even throw, a lot of guys in there back from the era before, I came along. But there's a lot of great history, and a lot of great Razorbacks that have come from out of state and been adopted and stayed in this state.
Yeah.
I think that's something you look at too.
Yeah, and now greatest walk-ons, homegrown from the state of Arkansas. I'll give you my 2 choices, and in the modern era. All right, Grant Morgan, Greenwood, out by Fort Smith, and my man, one of the toughest guys. He should have been in. If they ever did a sequel to the Patrick Swayze movie, what was that called with the bouncer? Roadhouse.
Mm-hmm.
If they ever do a sequel to that, I want Weston Dacus, a proud native of Searcy, Arkansas. That was a tough dude at linebacker.
Yeah, I agree, although I'd have to throw Brandon Burlsworth in there somewhere.
Well, I was going to say that, but he's from Northwest Arkansas. I was thinking of a couple of guys, but Brandon Burlsworth has to be, he's in a league by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you this. I'll bet you a steamer pack of Crystals and a 30 rack of Ham's beer.
There you go.
Stetson Bennett is more proud of winning the Burlsworth Award than he is upset that he didn't win the Heisman, because that means a hell of a lot more to him. I bet you I will take that one to the bank. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think he'll take those 2 championships over everything. And that's the big key, is that you work for team success, not individual success. Usually it comes if you have team success.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Football wise, guys are going in the portal every day. We know that. Not a damn thing you can do about it, but you do have to recruit high school, junior college. You got to recruit the portal, but really you got to recruit your own people, player retention, like employee retention in a company. That's the toughest part, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And for Arkansas, it's great that the backfield is back. That is one of the most important things. You got the quarterback KJ Jefferson coming back. You're going to be better in that room overall because you've added Jacoby Criswell, the former Morrilton star who transferred from North Carolina. You've added Malachi Singleton, who is up here now. So all three of those guys will be going through spring, and the other two I'm sure will take some great pointers from KJ. You've got the running backs back. You really didn't have anybody that transferred out that was a big component last year. And you are, with Dan Enos coming on board and adding several tight ends. And one of the big things that's probably happened since we last talked is the fact that the Shamar Easter, the young man from Ashdown, that tight end has decided he's definitely going to sign here with Arkansas on February 1st. So tight end's going to be used, and they've stocked them back up. So, and also added another coach in Deron Wilson. I think that as much as I liked and respected the defensive coaches that were here, Barry Odom's moved on to become head coach of UNLV. Having some different voices to listen to, having some more a different style where you're going to attack more, go after the quarterback more, will be exciting for Arkansas. I mean, even if they give up plays, they're going to be excited that they're at least chasing down the quarterback instead of waiting and reacting.
All right, a couple more questions before we let you go. Number one areas they need to fix on defense first.
Well, secondary would have been the thing, and probably still have added 5 different guys that can come in and play, better come in and play, and all who have had very good careers at other places. So I think that was a big thing. And then I think the defensive line, is something that they needed to add to. I do think they will add probably a couple of more in the period when you can open it back up, after spring football practice. So I think those are the two big areas. Not breaking any scoops there.
Yeah. Well, we know the secondary, but if your pass rush is better, then secondary is going to be even better.
And Landon Jackson should be fully healthy, the young man who transferred from LSU, and he should make quite the impact this next year. So I think there's the elements, to get better there, and we'll see what Deke Adams brings out of them.
Yeah. Let's look at offense. Offensive line with Sam Pittman and that mindset that he has. I don't worry about them, but do you? And what's the number one area of concern on offense? KJ's back, and that's going to be good. And the backfield is back. That's a great start.
Yeah, here's what I'd say about the offensive line. There were some great individual talents on there. Ricky Stromberg's going to be a high draft pick. It was a great center. But for whatever reason, as the season went along, the effectiveness of the offensive line broke down, whether it was a continuity thing, played so much too often, together. I don't know. And they've also had a lot of young ones that you might have thought would have stepped up, go out of the program of their own volition or being waived. So I think you've got a situation now where you've got the opportunity for some young ones to come along. I think they are probably more athletic, better able to do some things than the others were. You can vary it up a little bit. But I do think that, that's going to be a key area. Who's going to line up where? You got to want to get your best 5 out there. And while it may not be high on experience, I think it's high on talent.
Yeah. I think you referenced this a few weeks ago on the show. As the season went along, Arkansas's offensive line wasn't adjusting to what their opponents were doing. Expand on that.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of different things. Liberty comes to mind, and other teams, but Liberty, I think, did most. There were a lot of spin, a lot of athletic moves going on there, and sometimes technique can do you a lot of good. Other times, you've got to be able to make plays. And it sounds silly maybe to some people on the offensive line, but you need athletic offensive linemen that can bend, linemen that can get out. I mean, I watched all the games this weekend and watched defensive linemen make moves that, just baffled the offensive linemen. And that's because they were athletic. And I think that some of the athleticism was missing on the Arkansas offensive line. All great guys, all had great careers here, but later on they got schemed a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in the SEC, and I guess you could say Ohio State has it, Clemson does. There are a few schools, but in the SEC, the top teams always have 2 and 3 deep depth charts with talented players on the defensive front sevens, and that's what Arkansas is going to get. I believe. Look, Travis Williams, that's all he knows. You know, when he played for Auburn, he was 6'1", 205-pound linebacker out of Spring High School in Columbia, South Carolina. Played with Antarius Williams. He played with some, Carlos Dansby. He played with some great players. He was, his mentor as a defensive coach. He was coached by Gene Chizik. And then he, under Kevin Steele, I have so much faith in what he does. And Marcus Woodson. I think Arkansas is going to have a defense more in line with what the top teams in the West typically have, because they're going to start recruiting those kinds of athletes to fit their schemes. Are you starting to see that? Or if you talk to those guys, that's what they do everywhere they go.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the things. And the biggest thing, we sat on here before the year ended and right after the bowl and talked about how that Arkansas was going to have to change some things up. That on the coaching staff, some ideas, philosophies. You stick to your principles, but you had to go in and do some things. They went out, got 5 new coaches, either from their own choice or how things acted, and they have answered the areas that I thought they needed to answer, at least a step toward that. We'll see as they go through spring practice, and more importantly, as they get to the season, when, by the way, your non-conference schedule is so much easier this year than it was last year. We'll see if they can answer those questions, but at least they have addressed them. And that, whether you believe Coach Pittman is a great coach or a learning coach or whatever, as somebody who's sitting here and trying to give them a grade, trying to evaluate what they're doing, they at least address the concerns. And now let's see how it plays itself out.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to watch. Listen, Dudley, I know you've got to get on. You've got a busy day ahead of you. Before you go, tell people how they can follow you. And I know you're trying to get to all 200 plus high schools in Arkansas that play high school football. You doing the same thing in basketball?
Yep, moving along as quickly as I can. I went to Farmington the other night to watch 2 high school teams that are now 47-1 together. Great crowd in Farmington, Arkansas, with some great players, great coaches, continuing to move around and just see everybody I can, because as I've said many times, the high schools, basketball, football, baseball, tennis, golf, whatever, is the lifeblood of the college programs. And I have great respect for the high school coaches who are getting those kids ready to go, especially those who show their kids anything other than what's shown on SportsCenter.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's the annuitization of college if you've got great high school. And typically when the college programs are strong, in Arkansas with Hunter Yurchek, and they've always had Frank Broyles, Jeff Long, notwithstanding, but they've always had great athletic programs, 21 sports, 22 sports, and it never changes. But again, hawgville.net, let them know how they can follow you and your Twitter handle, and let's do this again next week. And thank you so much for taking time to join us.
You bet. Twitter handle is Dead Sports, DED Sports. And there won't be a lot of Cowboy stuff here right now. The rest of it. But yeah, looking forward to a great weekend.
Yeah. Well, look, you always do great stuff. And that was great insight on the Hogs. That is Dudley Dawson, folks, on the ECS House Industries Razorback Report. Thanks again.
You bet, man.
All right. Let's go down to Tuscaloosa, Title Town. Gary Harris joins us. He is the host of a great sports radio show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central on Tide 100.9, and Tuesday nights with Rodney Orr, WVUA Channel 23, Tuesday nights at 6:30. Gary, basketball game last night. I was texting you during the game. Alabama got the win. They're sitting there at number 2 in the country. That's a good game for them to be at home, get behind early by a lot of points, and come back, take control. What did you learn after watching that game?
Well, Rob, I guess that they can tough one out. You know, every game that they had played in the SEC, the first 7 had been decided by 11 points or more. In fact, Mississippi State had played the closest game against Alabama prior to last night over in Starkville. You know, they were averaging, Alabama was more than 20 points of victory in SEC play. And then last night at home, I don't really want to call it a letdown. I just thought Mississippi State had a great plan. And we've seen that if you want to have some success against Alabama, you better be physical and or be able to be physical, have some big bodies. Mississippi State has that. I thought they had a really good plan defensively, man. I mean, they pushed, Alabama away from the basket and got them deep into the shot clock. And, Alabama wasn't making the threes. And a lot of that thought had to do with Mississippi State's defense. And on offense, they were able to pound the ball inside and they were able to get on the board some, especially in the first half. And they had some success. But, having said all that,
Gary, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break and come back. I want to hear more about it. And I want to talk about the comparisons to this team and some of the other teams out there after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We're on a roll there about this Alabama basketball team. Before the break, let's pick back up.
Yeah, I just think that they, Mississippi State had a good plan last night. Had some players physically that could give Alabama some issues, and State played a great game. But I do think Alabama deserves obviously a lot of credit for coming back in the second half in a game where they didn't, play that well. You could argue they got outplayed, and still, Sears hit a shot with about 3 minutes to go, and to put them up 8, 63-55. And then you're assuming that, they're going to go ahead and pull away and win the game, maybe by double digits, but they didn't score but 3 more points. And State, cut it down to 66-63 and had a chance there at the end to force overtime. And Alabama had a great defensive possession on that final possession to get the win. So, it's the Southeastern Conference. And I've said all along, I don't think Alabama's going 18-0 in the league. It would have been disappointing, obviously, last night to have lost that game at home to a team that was 1-6 coming in. But, sometimes, as we've talked a lot about, and you see it in the NCAA tournament, it's about matchups. And, I don't think that Mississippi State's a good matchup for Alabama, even though they're 2-0. I bet you Nate Oates is glad that he's done with them, at least, until the SEC tournament, if they were to meet them there, because I don't think it's a great matchup for Alabama. But, you try to, find a way to win these games sometimes. I think that it's just been a situation, again, where Alabama's been pretty dominant this year. And you were caught off guard a little bit last night. But, I don't think Nate Oates was. I think Nate Oates knew this was going to be a tough game. He had said it earlier this week that he thought it was going to be a much tougher game than what it was over in Starkville, and that was a competitive game. So give Mississippi State credit, but give Alabama credit for winning the game.
Yeah, and you're right about these matchups, and you can have a team that's number 2 in the country, undefeated in the league, play the wrong team and lose. I mean, look at Auburn last night. They jump out 10-2 on Texas A&M, and A&M came roaring back and won by 12 or 14. It really wasn't even close. They just dominated, humiliated Auburn on their home court. And that too much talk about the home winning streak versus Texas A&M. That's my take on it. And that just shows you night in, night out. And A&M only had 1 loss in the conference coming into that game. And I look at Alabama with Brandon Miller. Let's talk about him. Last year, Jabari Smith was a top 3 or 4 player in the country. helped Auburn along with Walker Kessler, but really made an impact. Brandon Miller, compare his game to Jabari Smith or some of the other top 2 or 3 freshmen that you've seen this year, and is he better than them or right there on that level?
Well, I think this year that Miller's the best freshman in the country. I mean, I think you can argue that he's a top 5 player in the country, that he's a first team All-American, so I think he's clearly, from what I've seen, and I don't get to watch every game, Rob, when I'm at night, I'm working, I'm getting ready for a 10 o'clock sportscast. And so it's not like I'm sitting at home like some people are able to do, and I'm just strictly watching college basketball. So I don't want to slide anybody because I haven't seen everybody play, but I do think this, from what I've seen, Brandon Miller's the best freshman in the country. I mean, he's versatile. And the thing I like about him most is he's a good scorer, but he still helps your team even when he's not scoring, and he finds other ways to contribute. And he's not a guy that's trying to force feed himself baskets. He still lets his points come within the flow of the offense. I haven't seen him yet. Maybe when he's not having a great offensive night, get out of the flow of what the team wants to do offensively just so that he can get points. And, you see that sometimes with top players, they're also aware of the stat line. And I don't get that sense from Brandon Miller at all. I get the sense that he's just going to play the game. And if his points come within the offense, then that's fine. And if they don't, that's fine too. So, I mean, I just think he's a really, really good player. Clearly a lot like Jabari Smith last year. He's going to be a one and done player and probably a top 3 or 4 pick in the draft. So he's really good. But the thing about this Alabama team, they're not just relying on Brandon Miller. They've got other guys, and they really are a deep team, a team that's got different guys that can contribute. They've had some guys, on certain nights flash and score 17, 18 points, and then the same guy 2 games later might score 3. So they're a deep team, a versatile team. They're led by Brandon Miller, but Alabama's got a lot of different ways they can beat you. But he's good.
They really do. And Nate Oates, you're right. He did talk a lot about that matchup with Mississippi State, and people just look at their record, but they don't realize about the matchups on the night of the game.
Well, plus too, Rob, it's just, again, it's basketball. I mean, Kentucky was struggling. I get it. But you look at Kentucky now and what they're doing, and you will, because I'm not sure South Carolina's going to win another game in the league. I mean, they're awful. I mean, South Carolina is terrible, but they went into Rupp and beat Kentucky, and I don't care again what the circumstances were. I'm scratching my head right now on that one. I watched that game. There's no reason in the world that South Carolina should have been able to beat Kentucky, but they did at Rupp. And South Carolina now, most of their games, not only do they lose, they're getting blown out, and LSU is another team that they scored 40 points the other night against Arkansas. But, don't be surprised if they beat somebody along the way. So when you're in a conference, every time out, something can happen because these other teams are trying to win too.
They are. Let's switch gears to football. Bill O'Brien back to New England. It looks like he's, going to partner up with his old boss, Bill Belichick. And Alabama got to get a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and it may have happened while I was sleeping last night. But let's talk about those roles and other vacancies on the staff that are now and that you think might occur.
Well, obviously, as you said, he's got to get an offense. Saban's got to get an offensive and defensive coordinator. I do think that there may be another staff change or two. It's one of those things. Charles Kelly had already left, as we know, the safeties coach, to be the defensive coordinator at Colorado, and he brought in the young coach. It's not even though I don't think it's been officially announced yet, but the young coach Armstrong from Southern Miss is going to be on the staff. So I don't think Nick Saban's in any hurry, Rob. I think that the way he plans things out, the synopsis for the spring is already laid out. Now he will have to have those coaches in place before spring ball starts, obviously, and probably have them in place a couple of weeks in advance. But I said on Tiger Insider TV this week, I wouldn't be surprised if it's another week or two before he announces coordinator hires. And in some cases, again, he'll bring the coach in here, and it'll leak that this is who he's going to hire, but he might not announce it officially for another, several days after he brings them in and has them start working. And, it's just like the thing with Bill O'Brien. And again, you and I know how this works. You've got a lot of people now through social media and all that are young people that don't have a lot of experience. And as soon as ESPN put out the report that Bill O'Brien was going to New England, well, not everybody, a lot of people came out and said, well, it's official. No, it's not official. It's official when either Alabama announces that he's gone, or in this case, New England will announce that Bill O'Brien's been hired. That's when it's official. Now, is he going? Yeah, he's going. But we've fallen into this trap now. As soon as we see a reputable media outlet report something's going to happen, a lot of people run around and say, well, it's official. No, it's never official until it's announced by one of the two parties. And usually it's announced, in this case, like I said, the Patriots at some point will put out a statement saying that Bill O'Brien has been hired as our offensive coordinator. But until that time, it's not official. And what might happen with Alabama is a similar type situation. You might see reports that this guy's going to be the offensive coordinator and this guy's going to be the defensive coordinator, and they might be in town working. And Saban and the university might not wind up putting out a statement for, a number of days after that.
Yeah. Well, you look at offensive coordinator possibilities. I mean, you see names like Cliff Kingsbury, Air Raid, whatever. I just can't see Alabama ever selling out and going 50, 60 passes a game. But go back 6 years ago when their offense was averaging around 31 points a game. They made the changes. The passing game and everything improved a lot. It helps when you have Tua and a quarterback like him and Mac Jones and whatever. But they increased their average points per game by about 14 points. That was dramatic. Give me some other names that you think are good fits. Maybe not talk about now, but a couple of them that are good fits for what Nick Saban likes to do.
The thing about that question, Rob, is it's so hard for me to answer that. And I'm not trying to dodge the question, but, because Nick Saban maybe wanting to tweak a little something. It's just hard for me to say anymore what's a good fit. I mean, when he hired Lane Kiffin, based on personalities at the time, a lot of people said, well, that won't work. So, I mean, I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm just trying to be honest with you. I really don't know. Everybody talks about balance, but they were pretty balanced under Bill O'Brien, and the fan base, all it did was complain for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
That the guy was terrible, which again, I'm not very popular around here because I happen to like the guy and think he's a really good offensive coach. They averaged, 41 points this past season, nearly 500 yards of offense, went 11-2 last year, 2021, won the SEC championship against the Georgia defense that going into that game, people said Alabama wouldn't score 14 points, and they scored, 38 or whatever. 41. And then this, so they played for the national championship in 2021, and this year went 11-2 and won the Sugar Bowl, and people were ready to run the guy out of here. So the question, I don't know what, it only matters what Nick Saban thinks is a good fit, because I really don't know. And this fan base thinks they know, and I'm not being critical of all of them, but I don't know what else they want, unless I think Alabama fans, they want to win every game. And they want to score 50 something every game, and they want the other team to never be competitive in the game. And if you can do all those things, then they're going to be happy. So I guess a good fit would be somebody that could come in here and average 50 a game, have the, average 300 passing, 250 rushing, and blow everybody out. And then that'll, in their minds, that'll be a good fit. So I don't know the answer to that question. I think that Nick Saban knows what he wants. And that's really all that matters. And that's the good thing about Alabama football. It's in very capable hands. And regardless of what we think or the fans think or some, hee-haw guy on social media thinks, Nick Saban's is going to do what he thinks is best. And another very unpopular take around here is that these guys could have come back. But I don't think Nick Saban fired Pete Golding. I told you that last week. I think Pete Golding could still be the defensive coordinator here if he wanted to be. And I think that when Bill O'Brien came in, there was an understanding that he was probably going to coach here 2 years and then move on. But if Bill O'Brien had wanted to be the offensive coordinator longer than 2 years, I think he would be the offensive coordinator. I don't think Nick Saban was unhappy with those two coaches at all. Yeah,
I don't think so. And so many people are out there trying to say opposite of what you and I are saying, but I look now at the defensive coordinator. I mean, my number one choice is Jeremy Pruitt, and we all know what happened up at Tennessee, but that book hasn't been written yet. And there was a lot going on up there that we don't know. We may never know, but you cannot argue that Jeremy Pruitt, wherever he coaches, wins, championships follow. He is an elite level defensive coordinator. As a recruiter, he's an outstanding recruiter. He just has such high expectations and standards. If you can hire him, you'll take some public flack for it. I would want Jeremy Pruitt. I look where he's been and look at the wins.
I agree. And, I always just felt like he wasn't a good fit as a head coach in the Southeastern Conference. I still feel that way because I think as a head coach, it's about so much more than coaching football and even recruiting. But yeah, as a defensive coordinator at Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, wherever he's been, he's shown what he can do. And obviously he's worked with Nick Saban. I definitely think that's a strong possibility. I think there's a possibility he might even wind up on the staff and not be the defensive coordinator. If that may sound silly, but I think that it could happen. I think he could wind up maybe being a position coach, whether it's safeties, outside linebackers, who knows what. But yeah, I think that he's very much in play. I think he wants to coach again. What you said about the situation in Knoxville, it's never just one person's fault. I agree with that. But I do think if you're Alabama, you do have to have a plan in place if you hire him in regards to a show cause. I mean, you're going to have to show why you hired him. And if he does get some recruiting sanctions placed on him, then you've got to live with that. And you've got to have a plan that if we hire this guy and he's not allowed to recruit, how is that going to impact, the staff? So, but Nick Saban, as I said before, he's proven it time and time again. No one probably that's been as successful as he has. Of course, I don't know if anybody's been as successful as he has, Rob. But
yeah,
coaches of this success level, most of them probably don't have the staff turnover from the time they arrive. And now he's going into his 17th season. He's probably had more staff turnover than any coach in the country, let's say, even in the last 10 years. So he, it's still his program. That's the one thing I would remind people of, regardless of who the coordinators are, regardless of the staff. Nick Saban is still the head coach, and he knows what he wants, and he is going to, as I've been told before, and it's true, one of his biggest strengths is an organization, is that he lays out the job responsibilities for everybody in the organization, Rob. He may be tough to work for from the standpoint that he's demanding and there's long hours and he's tough, but he's easy to work for from the standpoint that when you take a job in the Alabama football program, you know what is expected of you. You don't walk around in the hallway saying, well, I wonder if they want me to do this, or I wonder what they want me to do that. And Rob, you may laugh, but you down deep, you're not, because that happens. That happens. And not just with support personnel. There are coaches on staffs in Power 5 conferences that aren't exactly sure from day to day what they're supposed to be doing. There's not every coach can do what Nick Saban does as far as laying out responsibilities for his staff. So, I'm with you. I think Pruitt would be a guy that could get the job done on the defensive side of the ball. But again, I trust Nick Saban will make good hires for the University of Alabama football program.
I do too. Got about a minute before the break, and we'll let you go because I know you have to get on for your show. But totally agree with that. Nobody has had that kind of turnover in the last couple of years. It's been relatively low compared to the years with 6 and 7 coaches leaving. But yeah, you give people that kind of freedom. Here are the expectations. Here's the standard. Give them enough rope. And if they hang themselves, that's on them. You can say, look, these are the expectations you knew coming in. I mean, somebody joins the United States Marine Corps. You're not there. You are there to annihilate the enemy. I mean, you are there to fight and to protect America. But that's what you're there for. You know what the standard is. Don't get there and complain it's too hard. Then you're a non-hacker. Get out. Let people know, Gary, how they can follow you and all the great work you're doing, and look forward to having you on next week, as always.
Thanks, Rob. On Twitter at Gary Harris _WVUA. That's at Gary Harris _WVUA. I'd love to have folks to follow me on Twitter. Also, Tide109.com for the radio show. You can download the app, or you can stream us, and the TV station website is WVUA23.com. And we stream all of our newscast and Tider Insider TV and Football Friday and other sports programs that I do. So I appreciate it as always, Rob. Have a great day, man.
All right, you do too. Thanks so much. We're going to be right back after this quick break. We've got Matt Dean and John Hartwell, the AD angle, in hour number 2. We will boxing rumble. Man, I'm going to talk about this new sponsor of ours in the second hour. Boxing, man. Lifting, 45-minute training sessions, Midtown Memphis, Rumble. We'll talk about it with Matt Dean, John Hartwell. College sports is next.
Hewlett and Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Matt Dean joins us here at the AD angle here in hour number 2. And I want to talk about one of our sponsors that just joined the team here, Rumble. Matt, this is going to be opening up first week of March is what the expected launch date is, but it is called Rumble Boxing, Midtown Memphis, owner Ann Lee. And I'm going to tell you what, hours 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and mid-morning to early afternoon on weekends. Basically, it's pretty simple. The breakdown: get ready to rumble with the latest grit and grind. That's a great Memphis theme made famous by Tony Allen, Grizzlies legend. The latest grit and grind workout to join the Memphis community. The combination boxing, HIT, HIT and strength training studio will open its doors in early 2023. Ann told me last night she's expecting to open in early March with plans to launch 2 other purchased locations over the next few years. Workouts, go big or go home, high intensity, full body cleanse that focus evenly on boxing drills and resistance training. Rumble's 10-round, 45-minute fight classes will raise your energy levels while you build strength and burn out calories, all in a non-intimidating and fun environment. And it will be. I just drove by the location yesterday at Union and McLean. It is high profile, all glass. I mean, you're going to be able to see people getting a serious workout. And that kind of, 25 benches and 25 boxing setups, 45-minute workouts. Think about that. Matt Dean, that's how you like to start off every day, isn't it?
I tell you what, Rob, good morning, by the way. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I've done, back in my younger days, some boxing workouts, and there's nothing that's more strenuous. Maybe jumping in a pool, but a lot of people don't like to get in the water. But like the boxing workout and just what you get from total – I mean, it's exhaustion. You tell me 45 minutes, Rob. I couldn't do that for a week after I tried it one time. But that, and the location is really good for her because you look at the number of college students that could also possibly be interested in this, besides young professionals as well.
Yeah. Rumble Boxing, Midtown Memphis. Check them out on the website. Go by the location. You can join now. They're offering discounted membership prices. Very reasonable, but you are going to be getting one of the best workouts you can get anywhere. Matt, a mental workout is what we get when we have you on the show. John Hartwell, a busy man as well, will join us here in just a minute. College basketball, man, we've been talking about with Dudley Dawson in the first segment, hogville.net, Gary Harris down in Tuscaloosa on Alabama. SEC, we're looking at the basketball, a lot of great athletes, but the Big Ten we talk so much about. They have a lot of guys that are, I don't think they're quite the athletes on the rosters top to bottom that you see on the SEC, but I think they're better basketball players. That's the Midwest, Indiana, Iowa, just Ohio. they're more fundamentally sound, but that doesn't translate well when they get to the NCAA tournament. And maybe you got a read on that, or can provide something that I'm not seeing right now.
No, historically, and I know I mentioned a few weeks ago, Rob, about how well Purdue is playing right now. They're number one in the country. Matt Painter, I really love him as a basketball coach. But historically, it hasn't always played out for a school like Purdue in the NCAA tournament. Right now, you look at what happened last night. I mean, you look at Bama, who's the number 2 team in the country, and for good reason. They've had a great start to their season. They've faced some adversity as late with some things off the floor, obviously, but they're down for the majority of the game last night to Mississippi State at home and found a way to come back and win that game. Tennessee methodically just takes you away offensively from what you want to do. Georgia has been more competitive lately, and Tennessee wins last night by 30. I was a little shocked last night. I believe Auburn fell down as well. I just think here's the thing. I know we say this a lot. I watched a game that the league that's really piques my interest right now, Rob, is the Big 12. Every night in the Big 12, like Kansas was like rolling. Yeah. And they've literally lost 3 games in a row. And I watched Baylor the other night pretty much control the game with Kansas from start to finish, right? The game before at Kansas, TCU went in there and dismantled them by 20. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you, I think there are many teams that can get to the second weekend, and there's a lot of teams that can get to the Final Four. But right now, the Big Ten outside of Purdue, I think the word I use, Rob, is parity. There's just a lot of parity in college basketball right now.
Yeah, there is. And you look at that Big 12 example you just gave. Kansas was rolling. Now they've lost 3 in a row. They're the defending national champion. So now this weekend, we're going to have the SEC Big 12 Challenge. I love these challenges during the middle of the regular season, not at the end like we see in the bowl games, which is a very inaccurate read on the strength of a conference. If you're honest with yourself, and we always are, we all know a lot of these kids that play on college football teams, if they're not in a big time bowl or the playoff, or they had expectations of getting to the playoff and their season collapsed late, I hate to say it, but a lot of them look like they just don't care. And during the regular season, that's when you get the best effort. And so Saturday, what are you looking for? SEC versus Big 12. I think these matchups, Alabama, Tennessee, I think it's going to be exciting.
2 of the ones I'm looking for, Texas going to Tennessee. Both teams are 17-3. Both teams are in the top 10 in the country. Yeah. I think another one that's intriguing because they've been playing better as of late is just Kansas and Kentucky, right? I mean, think about that. You're right, Rob. We get that game in the middle, and sometimes it's good as someone that coached basketball. You need a mental break from your conference, and this really helps. I mean,
I agree.
You're tired of the conference grind. Us as fans are looking for some more intriguing matchups. You get Tennessee and Texas. Another one that I think is interesting for me is I like Arkansas and Baylor this weekend. That's going to be a tremendous game. TCU, who honestly dismantled Kansas last week, they're playing at Mississippi State. I love it. I really do. Yeah. And I know it's difficult for the coaches because they have to shift. They're so prepared for their advanced scouting. But it's going to be a fun weekend for fans.
Yeah, and Auburn's got to go to West Virginia. So, it'll be great. Hey, John Hartwell joins us right now. Played a little college basketball at the Citadel. John, we're just talking about that Big 12 SEC matchup this weekend. Whatever conference that you look at, it is during the regular season, you can get tired of it. It's like a buddy of mine in college told me one time, he goes, my roommate is my best friend since kindergarten, and we're living together now, and I'd never lived with him before, and I can't even stand to watch him eat cereal. I got to get a break. I'll never forget that. And I'm not going to say what that was, but he's from Dadeville, Alabama. Great guy, though.
No,
I think it all worked out, though.
I think it's great for college basketball fans in general. I know you said coaches sometimes may or may not like it. Hey, there ought to be live mics. You talk about two of the great personalities, not just in college basketball, but in all of college athletics. Could you imagine live mics on HAWG and Pearl in that Auburn, West Virginia? Of course, whoever the executive producer of that is, that can do the silencer or the beep. There may have to be a beep or two in there. But yeah, I think the concept and having it, if you waited till mid-February to do it, which has been done in the past, that makes it really tough, because getting in a groove and the momentum going through the month of February, getting ready for conference tournament play, that makes it tough. But doing it this time of year is really good for college basketball, I think. And it also gives a kind of a barometer read to outside the league competition and some other folks where, like you said, all you do is continue. It's kind of like preseason scrimmaging or practice. When you beat up on each other day after day after day, it's good to play somebody new, and that's really one of the real benefits of these interleague matchups mid-conference season.
Yeah, and it is. And you think about, if you got to work out, if you walk every day the same route every day, or you swim the same workout every day, or bike or whatever, you got to mix it up. You've got to force yourself to get out of your comfort zone. And I like what both of you and Matt have said about, you get your scouting, you're in that groove of playing SEC competition in this case, or Big 12 competition in their case, night in and night out. Then you got to switch to a different style. But that can only help you, Matt, in preparing for the NCAA tournament, the big dance, March Madness, because you got 357 teams that are eligible. And we all know these look at all these small private Catholic schools around the country that play really good basketball. They don't have football. They don't have anything else. They got basketball. And that is it for them. There's just nothing like the weather, people on local TV calling for snow and ice and sleet to clean out the grocery store shelves. And there's nothing like March Madness to distract people from work. It's just nothing like St. Patrick's Day, all that fun going on, and the beginning of the NCAA tournament. Those people that run that's the one thing the NCAA does better than anything else in college or pro sports.
Well, and also the timing, right? Because we're almost done with pro football. Super Bowl's coming up. We can talk about football recruiting at the college level for a long period of time. We're getting ready for the dead period. So, yeah, March kind of sneaks up on us, and we need it as a fan base, right? And I'm just telling you, I agree with John. The timing, just by moving it to late January as opposed to mid-February, makes it much better. And, also that Calipari and Bill Self matchup, they have a lot of history there. I think they're pretty fond of each other. A lot of coaches are very fond of each other because we all steal what everyone else has done, and we know that. And it's all about players and who can execute the best in the last 4 to 5 minutes of a basketball game. And I'm just really excited for a weekend to kind of break it all up. And then when we get to March, this also helps because this is like playing in a second – for some of these matchups, it's like playing in a second weekend game, right? I mean, You look at Texas, Tennessee, that could be an Elite Eight matchup somewhere down the line. Those two teams are really good. Yeah,
it is. And it's really it's awful. I mean, Chris Beard comes from Texas Tech, goes to Texas. Now he's unemployed. No. And you look at John, Texas, they've held it together. I think they're 17-3. Again, both them and Tennessee in the top 10. Do you know the coach that is currently running Texas and what his background is? Because I can't recall his name right now, but he's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, he is. And, he was the head coach in the Mountain West for a while. He was at Fresno State, had some success there, and, has stepped into a difficult situation and done really well. And obviously part of this storyline is Rick Barnes and his time he spent as the head coach at Texas. And, I know when we were talking about Tennessee basketball, I think it was last week, one of the things about Rick Barnes is not only is he a heck of a basketball coach, he's just a down-to-earth, good guy. And, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody in the collegiate athletic circles, whether coaches, administrators, he's one of those guys you never hear anything negative about. People enjoy seeing good people be successful. And, obviously he and the Volunteers have it rolling on the hardwood this year.
Yeah. 17 years he was at Texas, and that's a long time to be. Of course, Clemson, Texas, now Tennessee. And I don't see him retiring anytime soon. He's not old, and he's from Hickory, North Carolina. He's not too far from where he grew up, but he's got Tennessee rolling. I want to switch gears now with both of y'all and talk about something. We have the next portal window coming up in May. I think it's May 5th or 15th. So that'll pretty much be after spring practice, football-wise. Do either of y'all, have y'all seen the numbers of players who have entered the portal? Let's go back to October 15th of 2018, who have entered the portal since then that were never picked up, and the number of players that are currently still actively trying to get picked up but are still homeless. I bet you it's close to 50% or more. Am I correct? Either one of y'all want to take a stab at that?
It's a pretty significant number. I know last year's numbers were somewhere around 40% for football in particular. Now, that's a little skewed. It's still a pretty high number, but that is an all-inclusive number. And when I say all-inclusive, that includes both scholarship and walk-ons who are on rosters. So if you look at the typical FBS roster and you got 85 scholarships available, most roster sizes are somewhere between 105 and 120, depending on the institution. So, you've got 25% of your roster who are walk-ons anyway. And if they're a walk-on, and I'm not going to name an institution, but if they're a walk-on at a lower performing FBS school and they throw their name out there, the likelihood of them getting a scholarship at another FBS institution is somewhere between slim and none, and none has got a 3/4 lead coming down the home stretch.
Yeah.
So those numbers are a little skewed, but it's still a pretty significant percentage. And just because a student athlete goes to see the compliance person on their respective institution's campus, goes through the process, and that button's hit for the transfer portal, doesn't mean, people are going to be knocking down their door to come, ask them to come to their institution. Now, you're going to see the high profile ones. When a starter leaves Notre Dame or LSU or wherever it may be, they're going to garner a lot of interest. And again, there's going to be an NIL component to that. But there's a lot of these others who hit that transfer portal button and never get a call.
Yeah, hold those thoughts because I want to get back into that. I've got several follow-up questions with more. John Hartwell, Matt Dean, the AD angle on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
The angle continues. I want to say something else about a new sponsor we just added on here today. Rumble Boxing, MidtownMemphis.com. Claim the special offer of 20% off unlimited membership for life. So again, opening up the first week of March. Boxing is a lot of fun. If you watch the national news at night, it's probably a good idea to have a punching bag versus hitting the wall. You get so frustrated sometimes. Boxing, grit and grind, 45-minute workouts, 25 boxing stations, and 25 benches for weight training. The 45-minute workouts will be intense. You cannot quit. You will be surrounded by other like-minded warriors. They're going to be fun to watch. First location opens up first week of March. Union and McLean, Midtown Memphis, right across from Walgreens. You cannot miss this place. Let's get in here. I want to ask you this, Matt. On the D3 level, a young lady goes to Rhodes College. They're going for the academics. That is a prestigious university with just under 2,000 students, the prettiest, most beautiful inner city campus of any college in America. I always tell people, if you've been to Blacksburg, Virginia, and been to Virginia Tech's campus with all the stone, it's Rhodes College per se on top of Smith Mountain up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. But when people transfer at that level, they may be, not that they're not at the D1 level in the Power 5 or Group of 5. Are they doing it for athletic reasons or academic reasons? I would think if I'm a pre-med student at Rhodes College in Memphis, I'm banking on getting into UT Medical School. I'll just stick it out where I am, whatever the sport. Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. The majority of our student athletes that decide to maybe, for whatever reason, they want to stop playing their sport, we retain and they finish out their education, and they're driven by their choice of academic major, right? As I told you many times, I recruited a lot of pre-med student athletes that had that focus from day one. And for us, the portal is not really a thing. Not that we don't have kids that want to transfer from school to school. If you're going D3 to D3, you just need a self-release, which allows you to talk to the other coach. But I mean, a D3 athlete that goes in the portal, they can do it, but they're, it's like John's description with some of these, preferred walk-ons. I mean, they're not going to get any play. Now you do see in the portal the Division II kid, the lower Division I kid that's got some really good tape that gets some play that may have been under-recruited in high school. But for us, it's primarily an academic situation. And if a student wants to transfer to another institution, it's usually same level, and it's just a self-release.
Okay. All right. John, back over to you. You just came from the Mountain West Conference. And again, for somebody down in Slapout, Alabama, Bainbridge, Georgia, Crestview, Florida, that is very myopic. SEC, what other conferences is there? I ain't never heard of them. Now, let's talk about that Mountain West out there. The teams, the fan bases. I'm curious, just making comparisons. What is it that's so different about the folks out there where you came from in Logan, Utah, besides the fact you probably have 3 or 4 feet of snow in your yard right now? And, but I'm looking here at what's going on at University of Utah, where you were at Utah State. You're just a couple of years removed from an 11-win football season with Blake Anderson. You got BYU up in Provo. You got Ogden, where the 2 railroads met, where the spike was put in the ground. That's
the golden spike.
Yeah, and you've also got where most of the great westerns were filmed when we were all growing up, Monument Valley, Utah. Correct?
No doubt. Hey, and a little side note here, a lot of people don't realize, and obviously a very, very popular series right now, much of Yellowstone was filmed or is being filmed in Utah, in the Park City area.
Did not know that. Wow, I did not know that. Well, Park City, absolutely gorgeous. But let's talk about that. I'm because everybody's got this in their head. I mean, we're in the South, SEC, ACC, and AAC, and we know about all that Sun Belt and Conference USA. But what is about the fan bases out there, the donors and all like that? What are their goals compared to, say, our famous booster down south here, Foghorn Leghorn, and what his expectations are when he gives to the program?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences, and I'll talk specifically to the state of Utah, which, I lived there for 7.5 years, a little more than that, until about 3-4 months ago, moving back to the sunshine and warmth of the South Arkansas area. So, but to me, the biggest thing about the state of Utah, and this channels back to a thought process brought about by professional sports, is basketball is huge in the state of Utah. And that was all driven by the Utah Jazz, the Stockton and Malone days, being the only show in town, if you will, or the only show in the state, was the only professional sport for a long time. And people in the state of Utah continue to be basketball crazy. Now, football has had its success. University of Utah, we've talked about Kyle Whittingham and what he's done. In recent years, you go back through the history of, BYU football, back to the Jim McMahon, Ty Detmer days. They've had a lot of success. Merlin Olsen and Bobby Wagner and others at Utah State. But basketball in Utah, and especially come November, people are still interested in football, but basketball becomes a priority. In the Southeast, basketball is primarily an afterthought until after bowl season is over. People, it may be, people may go, people may tune in, but it is not their focus in terms of college athletics until after bowl season is over with. So that's one big change there. And you talk about basketball, whether it's Danny Ainge days at BYU or Larry Kraskowiak at the University of Utah as a player and as a coach. It's a big deal, and that's a primary difference. And the other thing, I know we're primarily about college football and basketball, but college baseball in the South,
we love that.
Is huge. Is absolutely huge. Really an afterthought, especially in Utah and somewhat in the West. Arizona State, some of the warmer weather places have been good in baseball, but in Utah, you're going to have white stuff on the ground until early to mid-April in a lot of cases. So baseball is not that big a deal. And even when the snow thaws, you may have 1,500, 2,000 people at a baseball game, whereas you go down to Swayze Field in Oxford or Dudy Noble in Starkville, and you're going to have 10,000 fans and people are tailgating, and it's a festive atmosphere. So those are some of the biggest differences. But I'll say this: passionate fan bases, they may be of differing sizes. That is one of the things that really makes college athletics great. I know we talk about the negative impacts of NIL and some of the things going on. One thing that's not going to change: people have a passion and an affinity for their institution, and the way they express that oftentimes is through the athletics programs.
Yeah, and Matt, growing up in Iowa, I mean, we know about Iowa Hawkeye wrestling and Iowa State. College wrestling in the SEC was big. You had a legendary Auburn wrestling coach, Swede Umbaugh, 39 SEC championships. He's in the Hall of Fame in Stillwater. Throw that into the mix. I think the common denominator with Utah, Iowa, and those upper Midwest states is it's really cold in the winter. And I mean, really cold, where there's snow on the ground for months at a time, not just a couple of days before it melts off. So you got a lot of sports that you're really good at because it's pretty much the only option.
Yeah. Growing up in the state of Iowa, you knew about Dan Gable, a legendary wrestling coach for the University of Iowa, former Olympian. And this year, for me, I follow all the sports, but Iowa's number 2 in wrestling, and Penn State's number 1. And those two programs really, they're both in the Big Ten. They compete. And if you ever go to a wrestling match in Iowa City, Carver Hawkeye seats 15, 16,000. They are packed for their home wrestling meets. Matter of fact, Oklahoma State, which has a legendary wrestling program as well, came to Kinnick Stadium, the football field. It was right. I don't know if it was probably after a football game, but Kirk Ferentz, the head coach at Iowa, and Coach Brands, the wrestling coach, who wrestled for Coach Gable, they're really good friends and they support each other. And I think Iowa broke a record for attendance for a wrestling meet. They had it, soon enough where the weather was a factor. It was probably a September, October meet, but they did it in the football stadium. It was tremendous. And I wasn't there, but growing up as a kid in middle school, one of our classes in PE was wrestling. We had to take a segment on wrestling. Didn't really enjoy it, but it's definitely, it's a purist sport too. We watch all this stuff on TV, the WWE and the WWF, and we don't think about the real collegiate wrestlers. And some of the stars in pro wrestling got their start in collegiate wrestling, and obviously you have to have that entertainment value to do it at the next level.
Well, there's no doubt. Now, you weren't trying to say that studio wrestling isn't real. I'm going to make sure of that.
No, let's not go there.
Now, I grew up watching.
Rob, I'm just, I'm trying to think about 2 images there with Matt. Is it Matt pulling out his singlet, his wrestling singlet from 30 years ago and still putting it on? Or is he coming off the top rope with the atomic elbow, doing his best WWE impersonation?
Hey, remember Tojo Yamamoto, the chop? And one of my buddies was flying out to Los Angeles a couple of years ago, got on the plane, and he goes, I looked in front of me, and there he was. Coco, beware.
Yeah.
He did not have the parrot on his shoulder, as he could not fly with it during the virus protocol. But now I got to tell you, some of the greatest athletes, physical specimens of all time. I think of Jackie Fargo, Plowboy Frazier, Jerry the King Lawler. Now these guys are pure athletes, and that's all real. But just to be able to pick people up and throw them around like that, you got to be a pretty special athlete. And wrestlers make great football players with the leverage and all like that.
Yes, they do.
If I'm a football coach in today's world in high school, I probably scrap spring practice like they have done at MUS in Memphis. Matt, you know that. And John, they've won, since they did it in 2001, they've won 4 state championships in football, 4 runner-ups, and a bunch of other, really good seasons. But during the spring, they have their football players. They say, look, do track and field or lacrosse or both, because of all the 7-on-7 camps and the summer breakout sessions and all like that. And you talk about burnout, and we talked about that with Dudley Dawson of hogville.net in the first segment. You get burned out quickly, John, if you're playing the same sport year round. And we're starting to see a lot of that, where when we have Dr. Andrews on the show, he says they are seeing 11 and 12-year-old kids coming in with Tommy John's shoulder and injuries that we never saw in the past. As an athletic director, I'm sure you, John, I want your thoughts on this, and then you, Matt, work with top orthopedic surgeons and medical staffs and training staffs. It's not about being less physical, being less tough, but it's also about durability and lasting, because you want to be able to work out like my dad at 94, still work out every day of the week on the exercise bike and lifting dumbbells. I do.
Yeah, I think it's really important, both from a physical and mental standpoint. And again, in so many instances, we talk about the pendulum switching back. And, I think back, when we had a jump ball after every made hoop and you're shooting basketball into a peach basket when I played, that, nobody gave a second thought to going to summer school. It was not being a student athlete, whether you're a basketball player, track and field, whatever. you never really even thought about summer school. I mean, you went home, you worked, you worked out, you went back to your hometown, played with guys. I mean, I went back and played with, guys from South Alabama and Spring Hill College and, other local student athletes. Mark Gottfried, who was playing at Alabama, he'd bring Jim Farmer with him sometimes. So guys like that you played with, and you didn't stay on campus year round. And you've seen in the last 10 years or so, the trend towards not just football and basketball, but other sports too, staying on campus year round. And I think that you're slowly seeing a shift of, hey, you got to get away and get a break at some point, because it is a grind to be a student athlete. Yeah. People talk about, you're playing on a Saturday in front of, whether it's 10,000 or 100,000 people. And, that the game part of it is but a small fraction. It's those hours and hours of practice, or being in the training room, or being in the weight room, or, tutoring sessions, or whatever it may be. It's a grind. And by the way, these are 18 to 22, 23-year-olds who need some release, and physically it takes a toll, mentally it takes a toll. So I encourage, our coaches to give them a break. It's not, hey, don't go run, don't go do anything for, 3 months time and then come back, because you're not going to be the same athlete. But, give them a little bit of a break, both physically and mentally, to get away from the game. And I think you're seeing a trend back towards that. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, you just got to have multiple sports, multiple interests. Matt, your thought?
I remember in high school, I'm from Iowa, and Davenport Central High School, we've had a long history back in pre-2000 of some student athletes that had success at a higher level. Roger Craig, who played with the San Francisco 49ers, was from my high school. And we had our state championship football team back in 86, I believe it was. No, I'm sorry, 84. What our football guys did, all our skill guys, we would go to the track meet. When they were running the 4x1 or the 4x2, my gosh, that was the greatest thing ever. Going back to your analogy, John, or I think, Rob, you talked about MUS. I mean, running track, first of all, you're with a different group of teammates, right? Yeah. You play a sport, you have ex-teammates, you get out of season, and you're not doing the same thing. You meet some new people.
Hold those thoughts. Hold those thoughts, because you are on to the tip of the spear of the point I wanted to make. More right after this quick break on Sidelines.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we are back here on the Thursday college football basketball blitz. And Matt Dean, you were on a roll, followed up by what John Hartwell had said about breaking up the routine, the 12-month cycle. And I want you to continue, because you were the tip of the spear, and I want you to chunk that thing now.
Well, probably John and I grew up in similar eras in terms of there was less AAU basketball back in the day, and probably the John Hartwells of the world were doing some things outside of basketball calendar-wise. And that was no different where I grew up. I mean, a lot of our better football athletes, especially, our linemen were throwers and our skill guys were runners and jumpers. And we had a lot of football players that also played baseball because, your quarterback usually is in your rotation as a pitcher. When I was on the high school golf team, ironically, our place kicker, who became my best friend, we met on the golf team. So I'm just telling you, I think what's also happened, and I see this because I've coached basketball, is everybody wants to take advantage of specialization, and it's hurt us. And what's happened is we've got some kids that don't test the waters with other things that can still help them in their main sport. And you mentioned wrestling. I look at there's two NFL, Tristan Wirfs, who's the Pro Bowl representative at the right tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He played football at Iowa, but he was he won a state championship at wrestling. Tyler Lindenbaum, another Iowa guy who's a rookie center for the Baltimore Ravens. Him and Wirfs were going head-to-head in high school as wrestlers. And I just think the dynamic is something we've lost as a society. We're putting a lot of pressure on kids to master their craft outside their season. And you talk about the mental side. I don't think it's healthy either for the mental side.
Yeah, you do the same thing over and over. Old Einstein was right. It is insanity, and I just see it. I tell you what, some of the swimming moms, from my kids being on swim team, and I love to swim. I 5 or 6 days a week. I love it. But you're in there on your own, crazy at 5:15 in the morning. Then you got the parents up there reading the newspaper, trying to get ready for work with the kid out there. And some of these, Coach Fadgen, the greatest swim coach ever in Memphis, who passed away last year, he's one of my heroes. Some of these weeks, you might go 70 or 80,000 yards a week in training. You better be taking care of yourself doing that when you're 16, 17, 18 years old. You get into college at Florida, Auburn, Alabama swimming. Wow. You're swimming in the morning. You go to school, you swim in the evening. Both of y'all know this as athletic directors. You got to think about what's your body going to be like when you're 40 or 50 or 70 or 80. But you got to be active. But I just remember when I started at Auburn, players went home and they had a summer job. They came back the first week of August for workouts, and they did all the fitness tests. Again, some guys came back in great shape. Some guys came back way overweight, and they may have lost their position or slipped way down the depth chart. But you know what? I think you got to mix things up. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And what we're seeing in sports now is, John, a year-round specialization, and it's leading to a lot of burnout. That's the thing that I worry about is, think about all of us. If you do the same thing the same way every morning when you get up, you get burned out on it. You eat the same thing. As much as you may like a Greek burger from Alex's Tavern, 1445 Jackson Avenue, since 1953, the oldest locally opened and still operating tavern in Memphis, with the jukebox with 5,000 tunes in it, 6 big flat screens, the Greek shrimp, the barbecue, the Greek barbecue ribs. If you go down there and eat that, Matt Dean, it every day, you'll get tired of it. Well, your body does the same thing. And both of y'all as athletic directors, man, I don't think people appreciate the job that both of y'all have, because you're a surrogate parent really for hundreds of young men and women. John?
Yeah, you really are. But, that's one of the things. You do it as a passion, and I know Matt feels this way too, to see the positive impact that athletics had on my life, not only, growing up through high school, but as a collegiate student athlete, that to know the difference that made in my life continues to give me the passion today to say, hey, what can I do today to make a positive, life-lasting impact on young men and young women who compete in college athletics. And I'll give you a perfect example right here. Matt was talking about Davenport, Iowa. I'm on the phone last night offering congratulations to Ed Conroy, who's the head basketball coach at the Citadel. Got a big win in Cullowhee, North Carolina last night against the Western Carolina Catamounts. And going back to a multi-sport athlete, and I might have to see some film on this, Matt, because Ed Conroy, I still kid him to this day, and we all. I'm gonna tie this back into your eating analogy too, Rob. And I got hungry there for a minute, but I hear these exploits about Ed Conroy being an outstanding option quarterback, and I'm like, Ed, you had the biggest rear end of any point guard I've ever seen. How could you move on a football field? But evidently, was it Assumption High School? Am I digging back?
Davenport Assumption High
correct?
School. Catholic High School.
Yeah.
I love it.
He was a hell of a player too. He was a great basketball player. Davenport Central, we were a little better than them in football, but in basketball, man, he could ball, John. Ed Conroy could flat out ball.
Man,
Matt,
I see it because I tell him, and people gave me. He and I both were fortunate. He's 2 years younger than I am. He was the starting point guard. I was a starting 4 or 5 guy, and neither one of us were the most fleet of foot. And I think our mobility was compared to that of a brick wall at times. But we found a way to win. In fact, the other day I saw a Sunday newspaper, which is a very rare thing now.
Yes,
but I just have people tell me, "Hey, my vertical leap, you could get the Monday through Saturday version under my feet, but Sunday's version with all the comics and the ad flyers. There's no way. My vertical leap was not enough to get a Sunday newspaper under. But again, those types of relationships and they last a lifetime. And to me, that is the valuable byproduct, one of many valuable byproducts of being a student athlete, and those relationships and the life skills you learn. You're not going to win every game. Well, guess what? In the game of life, you're not going to win every game, too. You're going to get knocked down, dust your tail off, get back up, persevere, have an end game, an end goal, and keep working towards that.
All right, quick question. Is he related to Pat Conroy, who wrote the great book about the Citadel? Is that the Great Santini, the Lords of Discipline?
All of those. Beach Music, My Losing Season. Yes, first cousin. And I'll tell you this little side story. And I don't have them in here in my office. I think they're in storage somewhere right now, but I'm going to break them out for you guys one day.
Yes.
The Great Santini, which was about his dad. So who was a Marine fighter pilot. So the Great Santini, while we were playing at the Citadel, Pat's dad, who obviously those who read those books, it was to say it was a rocky relationship amongst their family would be an understatement, but they reconciled just like Pat reconciled with the Citadel before his untimely, or passing a few years ago. But the Great Santini used to come to all of our games. He lived in Beaufort, South Carolina, right down the road from Charleston. What a treat to get to know him. Pat would come periodically. At that time, Pat had a home in Paris, a home in San Francisco, and he would come to Charleston periodically. But that again, a byproduct that was made available to me by participation in college athletics, two of the great relationships. And so I have signed copies of those books, the Great Santini that both Pat and the Great Santini wrote in, and then several others that Pat wrote where he wrote personal notes in there.
Well, and I think about, a friend of ours and one of my oldest friends I've known for 41 years, Maury Gaston at Auburn, what he meant to me and to so many other people down there. You think about when you're 18, 19 years old, whether it's a coach, an athletic director, someone who just graduated from your fraternity comes up and says, "Hey, you guys need anything? Let me know. It's going to be tough, but you can't quit." And I think about that 41 years later, as I talk to him once or twice every day, I cannot imagine not having guys, tough coaches like the folks you had at the Citadel, or you had, Matt, when you were in college, But the only people that we seem to ever remember, the common denominator is the coaches or the teachers who were the toughest on us. I mean, I cannot thank Coach Russell Reed at Christian Brothers enough for being as tough as he was on me as a freshman, or Brother Adrian, or Brother Stephen O'Malley. I mean, you could go in there and tell Brother Stephen O'Malley, you were upset that they had disciplined your son in the way they used to do it in the Catholic schools, which was a good thing, and tell him how much money your family had and how much business and all the people you knew. And he'd sit there with those hands that were as big as catcher's mitts. He was the city handball champion in Chicago. And those Christian Brothers made like $1 a day, the LaSallian Brothers. And he'd look at you and you'd finish and he'd go, well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Hartwell or Mr. Dean, you got a fine business that you've been running for a long time. Why don't you get on back to work and let us turn your boy into a man, or at least see if he can make it. But we've got to do it, and we'll do it our way. Good day. And there'd be a crucifix behind him, and he'd say, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, goodbye. Now you got kids. I'm not kidding you. I had an athletic director at a high school tell me this. 7th grade parents came in, the mom and dad, trying to tell them, can y'all two imagine this? We think Matt is a better 2 guard than a 1, or we think John should be playing the forward versus a guard, and that's what we want you to do. Could you imagine that kind of a conversation? I mean, what if any of us had tried to tell a coach in our day something like that? Matt, come on.
It's happened when I was a coach, and it's kind of going back to your analogy at Christian Brothers High School. I've always said, everyone has to retire at some point from their athletic career, and maybe this is the time for you to move on. I'm always happy to expedite the process. Expedite the process. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think about the air conditioning wasn't working, and Brother Joel looked at me and he goes, Mr. Browne, it is better to suffer. May we continue? You cannot beat hardcore Catholic education from the LaSallian Brothers. I mean, there's nothing like it. But John, think about when you went to the Citadel, the lessons that you learned. How many times? Be honest. And Matt, John, you do know the 4 cities that make up the Quad Cities, don't you?
Yes, I have been given that Iowa history enough to be able to know that. Yeah, absolutely. Much like I've also, again, this goes back to college athletics experience. The Tri-Cities on the opposite side of the state from you guys in East Tennessee there. Yep. With Bristol and Johnson City and those, you got to know those analogies for the locals because it's really important.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say, you go back to those analogies and the lessons learned, and my dad used to tell me this. My high school coach: adversity builds character, and it really, nothing teaches you that at a younger age and a more consistent age than involvement in athletics. And to me, I think that's just one of those byproducts and one of the lessons learned that you use long beyond. And you used an analogy. The one I use is, at my age, my mind still thinks about, what you could do on a basketball court or whatever. When your mind tells you can still do it and your body says, pardon the language here, hell no, it's time for you to quit thinking you can play church league or whatever. I'll go out and play horse or shoot free throws. But my body says, hey, you can't play up and down pickup.
Well, it's still good, though, to be active. And both of y'all know this. I consider both of y'all, you're both coaches. An athletic director is a coach. Matt, you've coached and you're an athletic director, associate AD now. But when I'm talking or asking you a question about basketball, it's like me asking my dad about rebar, reinforced concrete, or tensile strength. Concrete has no natural tensile strength. Shout out to all the engineers in the world. Remember, today, half off on all Browne suits, hush puppies, and pocket protectors. So just keep that in mind. But I got to tell you, as an athletic director for both of y'all, probably the greatest thing is for when your student athletes that were in your program come back 10, 15, 20 years later, married with their families, and thank you for being so hard on them and being tough and not letting them quit, not letting them go into the portal. Huh? How about that? That's just, you know, I'm
There's
gotta hang
nothing
in.
better. There's nothing better to see someone that you may have recruited, or even John can relate to this. One of the things that athletic directors do is there are times when we talk to every team. We'll talk to the tennis team, we'll talk to the lacrosse team, we'll talk to the soccer team, and it matters to them when you're out there wishing them the best, being at those games, supporting them. And you're right. That homecoming is always a special time. Since I've been at Rhodes for 32 years, I get to see some of the kids that not even coached. I had 3 football guys came up to me this year that I was fans of when they played. So it's just athletics is special profession. We've both been blessed.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of them. Mark Hamer played out there at Rhodes. Kudos, a bunch of guys. Bill Lansden. I mean, you do it, and John, you both know it. It's for life. But let me say this: we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, as Jay Evers, my good friend from Dadeville, Alabama, says. Give to give out of the goodness of your heart. And John, Matt, we're all young guys. We all got a lot to give, and we're going to do this again next week and in between as well. AD Angle, college basketball, all this stuff going on. You can't get enough of it. As long as they're keeping score at any level, it's competitive. You don't have to pay $5,000 and travel all over the country. Make it competitive. Life is what you make of it. Don't let other people, as Gandhi said, and I'm not a philosopher, but I will not allow other people to walk through my mind with their dirty feet. So think about that. John Hartwell, closing comments. We got 20 seconds.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate it. Hey, I'll just give a little teaser here, and this is back to what Matt said. So I had some back and forth with Jordan Love yesterday, quarterback, Green Bay Packers, first-round draft pick. Here's what he said, and this is why I do what I do. I appreciate the experience I had at Utah State with John Hartwell as my AD. I feel Mr. Hartwell had a great way of always being present and also interacting with all of the student athletes, doing a great job of helping us strive to reach our goals and still helping me stay connected to my university and the football program even after I graduated. I mean, here's a first-round NFL guy. That's why you do what you do.
That's right.
Absolutely. And who's the better one? Chucky Keaton. I have nightmares about him from that Auburn game in 2011, or Jordan Love. Great job, guys. Hey, thanks for listening. Have a great day, everybody. We live in the greatest country in the world. Act like it. God bless America. See you tomorrow.